Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Newfoundland, do you love me?
Woo!
All right, that's it. We're moving in together.
So have you been to Newfoundland before this convention?
Never. First time on the rock.
All right, on. So,
Let's shoot myself.
cover your ears for a second. You know what's happening tonight to him. Shh. All right, too late. Okay, so
Does it rhyme with spanking? Oh, no.
So you've had an incredible career, Kirby. Like, I mean, not only as a stage actor and in movies, but as a voiceover actor. So how does someone become a voiceover actor?
You buy your way in. I was given very good advice. Was anybody at the panel yesterday? Okay, I might repeat a couple things, but okay. I was given very good advice in the beginning of my career when I was going to theater school that in order to be successful at this job, you must seek out every avenue of employment that you can. That way you're always practicing and always working your craft. So I knew there was this thing called voiceovers, when there was cartoons and there was commercial voiceovers, and you could do voiceovers for people's answering machines, and people would just like funny voicemail messages, and you get paid to do all these things. So I started to study that, and I started to train in voice. Outside of the training, I did 2 years of training that was just voice, plus acting and everything else, but it was very intense on voice. And I kind of really focused on learning how to do characters and what they wanted for animation, and make sure I got an agent that had a good rapport with studio heads and stuff that would get me in for auditions. And then I just started auditioning, and it started to work out very well for me.
But did you, lots of us have thought about being in the industry and doing things like this. Like, did you wake up at age 5 and say, you know what? Voiceover.
No, I was going to be a lawyer. I watched every episode of Matlock and LA Law that you can imagine. But then I slowly realized later on that I didn't really want to be a lawyer. I just liked the dramatics of being, all those dramatic lawyer shows. And it was funny, 15 years after I started acting, I actually got to appear in my favorite show, LA Law, in the LA Law reunion movie. And if you ever see that, I'm the naked guy in the beginning having sex with Corbin Burnsen's wife. And he comes in and catches me and has a heart attack, and I jump out and give him CPR naked. That was...
All right, so we have a new winner for most awkward scene in a movie ever.
And to add to the awkwardness, I didn't know who the girl that I was going to be having sex with was going to be.
Yeah.
And it was a girl I'd gone on a date with 7 years earlier.
Oh my God.
And I never called her back. And I climb into bed naked with her and I go, hi, I'm Wow. And those are new. Oh, anyway.
And she's like, I want my U2 CD back.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh my God, I did not hear that's a good story. So the way we're going to do this is, I obviously have an awful lot of questions because I'm really interested in this. But of course, you get tons of time. So let's go right ahead to the audience. Yeah, go ahead.
You're saying you wanted to be a lawyer. Is that where you got the inspiration for the very, very long, epic monologues Goku would go on that would last an entire...
So tell me, Vegeta. No. Lawyer Goku. How about you can't handle the truth? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It was Dragon Ball Z kind of blindsided me. I didn't know. I didn't even audition for the show. It started off. Ian Corlett was doing it before I even got out of theater school, and then he decided to stop doing anime, and Peter Klamas picked it up. And then they decided to move the show to Texas, and the Funimation group started to do it. Then they decided to bring it back to Vancouver, and Peter Klamas wasn't available, and I'd filled in for him for a commercial, because I could do a similar voice as Peter, and they just said, do you want to be Goku? And I'm like, I don't know. What if I don't do a good job? They're going to crucify me. I was nervous. But started recording, and every once in a while I'd look online and see if there was any negative comments, and they weren't. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm doing okay. So, yeah.
Cool, go ahead.
The thought ever occurred to you as a joke that if they crucified you, they could just use the 7 Dragon Balls to bring you back?
Well, see, this is the way I think. This fantasy world is absolutely reality.
So, talking about reality, what is the life of a voiceover actor like? I mean,
Oh, it's champagne and caviar. Woo! Hanging out at limos. Yeah. It's interesting because it's working is really, really fun. It's the greatest thing ever. But it is a hard job to get a job. There's a lot of competition. You have to really protect your instrument. You have to keep learning and expanding your vocal range. You have to make a lot of sacrifices sometimes to be able to, people are going to go out and have a great time and party tonight, but I have a 9 a.m. audition where I have to sound like a 13-year-old boy, so I don't think I can go out. Yeah, sorry. So, you have to really fight to survive. It's a dog-eat-dog world.
So what would, if you're doing, say, Dragon Ball, what's a day look like for you? Like, obviously you get up at noon, your butler wakes you up.
Oh, yes. Well, I pretty much do a vocal warm-up every morning because in the beginning, I was theatrically trained, and that's what you're trained to do, be able to get your voice warmed up, and you do all sorts of vocal warm-ups to make sure your instrument is nice and ready. And I'll be driving in my car going, and I'll look over at stoplights and people are looking at me. And this is before the days of Bluetooth. I'd pretend I was talking on the phone. And then, you go to a studio and, sometimes you might have several bookings in a day. So you go in and they used to book me 6 hours at Dragon Ball, but that was, just would blow my voice.
6 hours?
6 hours of just screaming. And they'd say, okay, you have a 23-second yell, go. And they're like, oh God, you got 20, that was close. Like, damn it. So you do that, and then go off and do a commercial, and then I'd have to go home and change into a suit and go for an audition. Then I'd have to go home and change again and go for an audition for a guy like a total stoner. And then it's taking on a bunch of different personas and playing a bunch of different characters in the day. And most of my life is auditioning and memorizing lines for on camera, and figuring out how to put a voice to a character that's going to be along the lines of what they want. And sometimes they'll say, oh, okay, I just had an audition where they said, okay, we want this guy to be a leading man, kind of like Captain Kirk, or who is the black actor from a British show where yeah, the big
Elba?
what?
Wait, which one?
He's like he's a police inspector.
Is it
Bennett.
Idris Elba?
Luther, yeah. So the actor from Luther, they go, yeah, like Luther or Captain Kirk, who could not be more different in my mind. And like, yeah, we want him like that. Okay. So sometimes you can get very confusing information. But I've lost my train of thought now. Where's my gin? Well, yeah. So what was the question?
It was like, what's your day like?
So it can be a lot of, and you got to go from one studio to the next, and it's it'd be a hard job to do on the bus. So you kind of have to have a vehicle, and you have to make sure you can get some places and find parking, and you're like, oh, I'm late for my audition, I can't find a place to park, and it can get aggravating. But when you book a role, it's the greatest thing ever.
Oh yeah.
So,
questions? Anyone? Yeah.
Most difficult voice I had to do. Goku. No. I don't know, because I think once you get cast for a voice, then it's something that I can do well. Because if it's not, if it's something that's too hard for me to do, I'd probably get fired. Goku was definitely the most straining. And, yeah,
23-second, yeah.
Yeah, the screaming's like, you'd scream and then you just start seeing spots. And
yeah, right at the back. No.
Well, the difference preparing on Stargate is, it's very funny because they'll go, okay, your call time is 7 in the morning and you're in the second scene, but you might not go to set till 4 p.m. So you'll sit in your trailer, reading your lines, memorizing your lines, watching movies, just trying to, you know, and then you're totally off book, and then you'll go to set, and your lines just escape you. Yeah, luckily in Stargate, I could actually, working on the console, I could put my lines right there. Like, hey, the Wraith are attacking from the left quadrant, and now they're moving in. Shall I fire, sir? And I didn't do that all the time, but sometimes it happened. You know, in voice work, the lines are there. And the trick is, it's very hard for even actors that I've known that work on camera all the time. It's very hard that when we put something in front of us to read, that we don't sound like we're reading it. And I've had actors say to me, you know, I do really well on camera, why can't I get into this voiceover thing? And I'll say, well, let's go in the studio and then see. And you'll see them get in front of that microphone and just go, okay, let's go and get them. I will fight them to the death. Because you see the lines and you start to over-enunciate, like words like B-E-T-T-E-R. We would say better. It's just, you know, the T's kind of turn to D's, but when you read it, you're like, you better watch out. You better not do this. And it sounds over-enunciated, and it sounds read. And it's little traps that we fall into when we're reading. So you have to get the skill of seeing the line and being like, you better watch out, man, and be like totally into it. And it's called bringing it off the page. Instead of reading it, making it come alive.
That's a really good phrase. I've never heard that before, the bringing it off the page thing. Because, yeah, like I always find it very difficult when I'm performing to write anything down. Like I never write my shows down. And I find anytime I do write, and I start looking at the paper, I do exactly what you're saying. Yeah. That I'm like, let me tell you a joke about this chicken. Right?
And along those lines, is you know, when you go into audition for voiceover, you can have the lines right there. Nobody's filming you. It doesn't matter. They just want to hear your voice. So you can sit there and look at the lines. But if you walk into an on-camera audition with your lines in your hand, you can have them completely memorized. But if they're there, you're going to want to keep looking at them, and if you're looking at them, then the camera can only see the top of your head, so you start kind of lifting it, and you're awkwardly going, yes, this is totally natural, yes, we will fight the evil people.
I want to see that show. I want to see Kirby fight the evil people.
Evil people will perish,
They better watch out.
Better. You better watch it.
Yeah, go ahead, sir, you have a question?
Oh,
it's all right.
And the answer is once, but I was young and I needed the money.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Do you do your best Kamehameha, like body motions and everything?
Oh,
Body motions. I think my best one is like this. Kamehameha.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I was just noticing a theme that with both Dragon Ball and Yuyasha, both of your characters always have their palms stretched out.
Yes.
I've always wondered about that.
Yeah.
Is this a pattern?
It's making yourself look big, like in the wild. Why did Morocco always have to yell when he brought out his wind tunnel? Yeah,
tell that.
You know, he could just went, wind tunnel, yeah, here comes bitches.
Yeah, we were joking yesterday that he like works for Dyson Vacuum now.
Yeah.
Look how well it works. Like this. But do you find it to be, you know, is it difficult to go from being a voiceover actor to being on screen?
Yes. I've noticed a lot of people that actually started off on screen acting and then got really good in the voiceover industry kind of stepped away from on camera because on camera it's really dependent on your look. Yeah. You're only going to get a role if you look the part. Whereas with voice, you're going to get a role if you sound the part. And it's easier to duplicate a voice than to change yourself into, oh, say, a 15-year-old girl. Or, you know, because you can play different ages, races, sexes as a voice. And on camera, you got to look a certain way. Give me the question one more time, because I'm going to...
Is it tough to go from being an on-screen actor to being a voiceover
what
actor?
A lot of people, because you have to be a little larger than life in animation, and it's a little overacted, a little bigger. And if you carry that on screen, it's like, no, Sergeant, yes, we will! We'll bring it down. And it was interesting because I started in theater, and everybody, you know, I'd never acted in my life when I got into theater school, because it was a total mistake. I'll tell you guys this story. I was walking past the theater department while I was looking for a place to live, and I was going to go to university and take my Bachelor of Commerce, and then go on to law school. And I passed the theater department and asked them about maybe taking a class here or there. They misunderstood, signed me up for the program. I wound up getting this call in the middle of summer going, 2 people dropped out of the program for this year. You have an audition in 1 week. And I was like, what? That's crazy. No, this is a total mistake. And I said no. And then I hung up and I was like, it's a sign. Some kind of sign. I've always wanted to do this. So I called them back and they said, yes, you got to prepare a classical monologue and a modern monologue and something that you've written. And I went, okay, great. And I hung up the phone and I went, monologue. What the hell is a monologue? So I called them back again and asked what a monologue is. And they're like, you're sure you're signed up for the theater program? And I'm like, yeah, because I didn't know that. And they explained it. And I'm like, oh yeah, the big speeches that we had to study in Shakespeare. And the rule of thumb in theater back then and still today is you never, ever, ever do to be or not to be from Shakespeare, because it's so overdone, everybody hates saying it. So I chose to be or not to be. And a monologue from Death of a Salesman. And the piece I wrote, I called Bitter in the Graveyard, because in the movie, there's usually 2 grave diggers when Hamlet walks into the graveyard and does his old, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio. And so there's one grave digger that Hamlet talks to, and there's another grave digger that just digs. So I did the inner monologue of this other gravedigger who auditioned for Hamlet, but got the unspeaking role. So just angrily talking about, I could have done this role. And they found that very funny, and I got into the program.
So what, you know, the community, the voiceover community, is it a tight-knit community? Do you like know a lot of other voiceover actors? You guys hang out, or?
I know them all. Ask me their underwear color, you ask me what they eat for breakfast. Yeah, we see a lot of the same people, because once people get really good, this is kind of the difference of being an on-camera actor and voiceover actor. In on-camera, you can start small, doing little bit roles, one-liners here and there. In voice, you have to start being able to do a lead. You have to be strong enough to be able to compete against everybody else who's going to go for that role, because they're not going to hire somebody to do a one-liner. They're going to hire somebody to be a lead character, and then hopefully they can change their voice, they can change their voice, and do that one-liner as a different character. So you have to come in strong and be a very strong actor. So you tend to see a lot of the same people that have developed that skill and have gotten that strong.
Really interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of other voice actors, have you ever worked with Erin Fitzgerald?
I know the name. Is Erin Fitzgerald a girl?
Yes.
Yeah, she
Erin's a good sex name, right?
She's done a lot of video game characters and a lot of... Well,
is she Canadian? Do we know?
Yeah, she did Monster High.
Monster High...
Yeah, a couple characters in Monster High.
She was...
Look her up.
Oh
Erin
god,
Renee.
she was in too many things to remember.
Watch, I'm going to know her and I'm going to look so foolish.
She was actually here at last year's convention.
I think it was it 2 years? Was it last year?
It
Yeah.
was 2 years ago.
2 years
Was it
ago?
2 years
years
ago,
ago.
'cause it was
She
the
did
first convention I
Atlanticon
went
last
to.
year.
Oh,
She did
yes.
Atlanticon.
I met her 2 years ago.
All right, so wait while we...
Erin Fitzgerald. Oh, Ed and Eddie, Sabrina and Eddie. Oh, she's from Vancouver. That's Sabrina. I don't think we've ever worked together.
She was the woman in the bed during the...
Oh, Erin, yeah! I need to see her picture. She's terrible at names. I don't even know who I am. Crazy.
But do you find you work with the same people? Like, the question I have is, like, when you do voiceover, is it like a group of you together, or is it just you in the booth, and you're doing your bit, and then they bring someone else in, and they do it? Or is it like, sort of like, if we were doing an anime together, we'd all be in the room with our own mics?
Yeah, so there's 2 types of basic animation, which is prelay and ADR. Prelay is American-style animated series where it hasn't been made yet. And all the actors are in a room together in a circle or a semicircle, and there's engineers and directors and everybody's in the other booth, and we read the script and we play off of each other. The very important thing is you can't ever overlap lines. They want every line to be separate in case you want to move it around a little bit. So you always have to wait till somebody finishes talking, wait a beat, and then you can come in with your response. For ADR, which is also audio dialogue replacement, that's where something's been done in another language, like Japanese or French or Dutch, and we revoice it in English. That way, it'd be too difficult to have a whole bunch of people trying to do it all at once. So you stand in the booth by yourself, watching it, and you have all your lines kind of listed out with a time code. And you don't get any action in the script, which is really funny. So they've said to me for 20 years, scripts are available, would you like to pick them up? I'm like, but all they are time codes and dialogue with no description about what's happening. So it doesn't make any sense in the world. So in 21 years, I've never gone to pick up a script before I've done an anime. You just get it on the day and they go, here's your first line. At 10:02, you say, get out of the way, we're going to break this thing. Okay, so you're watching. Get out of the way, we're going to break this thing. And they'll go, okay, you went on too long. You're going to try it again. So you might try a few times. Sometimes it can take a long time to get a line because it's too long and you have to rewrite it. But it's more fun to be in the room with other people, to play off them and laugh and joke. We do a lot of hugging.
But is that common? You were saying about how, because of different languages, obviously words are different sizes and phrases mean different things.
Yeah.
Does that happen often where you're doing an ADR? You said
ADR, yeah.
You're doing an ADR and you're just looking at the line going, no, it just doesn't work. Like,
Yeah.
It's like Goku goes, no. Right? And the line is like, and you're like, no.
Yeah, and you'll be like, no. And then we're like, no, there's no way. The director will pick it up right off the bat and say, we got to add something to that line, or we got to make it shorter. How do you shorten no? No.
Yeah, go ahead.
I always wanted to know if it was true that the reason they added more dialogue in the English version was to layer over everything they had to cut out of the Japanese version, because the original Dragon Ball Z in Japan was R and they had to make it G-rated.
Oh, I am not privy to such information. I have no idea.
Good question, though.
I don't know, because I don't watch the Japanese version. I just see what the American version, what they have given to me, and then we're given dialogue. And if they make cuts, it usually has to do with time frame. If it's going to fit, how many commercials they're going to stick in between it. So we're going to have to cut out certain things. And there's all these stipulations that are going to affect the show. I don't know if anybody saw Vision of Escaflowne. Don't film this. Fox killed that show. It was horribly mutilated on the TV.
Wow.
Yes, but
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, what was it like to reinterpret Cyclops for a new generation, because you got Evolution. It was right after the movie came, so everyone was like back on the X-Men bandwagon.
Yeah, when X-Men came out, I had never read an X-Men comic. I knew nothing about the X-Men. I only knew Wolverine, that's it.
Yeah.
And so when the auditions came, I was like so nervous. I went to a comic book store and I bought one of those thick comic novels.
Yeah.
And I started reading all night, trying to figure out as much as I could about all the characters. And I was actually not the first choice for Cyclops. Somebody else got the role, and they recorded 2 episodes, and then that person was fired. And I got the role. And I stayed the role.
Oh, wow.
But it happens, and on X-Men, there were several people that lost their jobs, and it was, we had all these people in our ears, we're all in headphones in LA. They're real big sticklers about Canadian accents. They hate Canadian accents.
Oh, wow.
We're talking even generally, just more our outs and abouts. Because Canadians say out and about, and there's a little oo at the end. So they go, you say oot. We do not say oot. We say out. Out. Or they go out, about. And their big one is sorry. They hate sorry. It's sorry. They say S-A-R-R-Y. I'm sorry. Everything is made a little lazier. It's got instead of process, it's process. Proceed is proceed. So it's learning the Americanisms, learning how to speak American is very important. Otherwise, I remember one time there was an actor. I won't say his name, but we were sitting there. We were doing X-Men, and he's an American, but he happens to live in Canada now. And the executives were very hard on us for our Canadian accent, saying, "No, we heard a Canadian oot. We heard a Canadian oot." And he says a line, and they go, "Oh, Dale, we heard a Canadian oot." And he politely went, "The fuck you did." And we all went, "This is the show that fires everybody." And they go, okay, let's listen back to that. And they played it back, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess it was okay. Sometimes they.
I love the idea of the X-Men is the X-Men bracket, the show that fires. Yeah, go ahead.
So along those lines, what company would be the harder ones to work for then?
I want to keep working, so I'm not going to answer that question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, you're saying the key to voice acting is if at first you don't succeed, either try again, or hope someone else gets fired.
Pretty much. There's been several times where I've gotten a role that somebody else had first. And they're like, yeah, you know, just not working out. And I've been replaced before, both on camera and in a cartoon. And it's never nice, but it's like, it happens.
So how is that? Like, I mean, if you're stepping into a role that someone else has had, like, for example, the Cyclops role that you brought up, someone else has done it for 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Do you try to make your mannerisms and your voice the same as that other guy?
No, because I don't hear what they've done.
Right.
I don't, and they just tell me what they want.
Right.
And I try to interpret what they've said and give them the best that I can of what they're looking for. Especially if this person's not giving them what they're looking for. I don't want to try and copy that.
But you have to tell us, you also did Anakin Skywalker and General Grievous.
Yes.
So you got to tell us the General Grievous story about how you did that.
Okay, so when the auditions came up for all these characters, and they had like, you know, Lord Dooku and all these voice references, and like, you know, there was one for General Grievous, and I was like, I think I can kind of emulate that, and I was trying to play with it. And then I realized to get his sound like, activate Prince Shield, I will destroy you. And doing that with my hands kind of gave it that sound that he has, because he's very modified, you know, in the studio. And I wound up, and they were like, that was amazing. Did you have your head in a bucket? How did you do that? I'm like, I usually have my head in a bucket, but not for this. This is just a little something I do with my hands. So I ended up booking the role, and then on the day of recording, they said, yeah, but don't do the hand thing. Just read it normal, and then we'll affect it later. And I would read it, and the director's like, no, that's not right, that's not right. Well, why can't you do it now? I'm like, could you not let me do the hand thing? and I needed to know what the original actor sounded like before his voice was digitally affected in order to emulate that. And nobody had a reference, so I was searching, and thank God for YouTube. I found the actor in the studio doing it, and then actually a couple radio interviews where he was doing his General Grievous. Hey, come on in! How you guys doing? And then I was able to emulate that, and then it started to work out where they could digitize it and I could throw in the cuffs.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know you haven't got any questions about Michelangelo in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What was your take on his voice? Like, what were you aiming for when you did it?
When the auditions came up, I rented all the movies, and I was trying to. This is okay. I didn't tell this story last time. This is an interesting story. I went in for the first audition and just did what I thought he should sound like. And the person that was the writer and creator of this series called me back. And on the second callback, he told me at the end of the callback, he goes, "You're my Michelangelo. Now I need you to come back to every other audition until we can cast the rest of the turtles around you so they sound different." So I went to 7 more auditions,
Wow.
9 in total, until they cast all the turtles. I was the first person cast. This guy then goes back to Los Angeles and just kind of monitors the show and writes the scripts from there. But we go in for our first day of recording, and this was my first voiceover job ever.
Wow.
I
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And I go in for the first day of recording, and sitting in the studio is Lance from Saban Entertainment, the guy who owns the network. And when I do my first line, I'm a little nervous. There's all these professional guys that have been doing this for years now that I'm working with, and I'm like, wow, I'm like Dobson and Matt Hill, and this is really cool. So I do my first line. I go, "Whoa, Donnie, what do you know?" And Lance is like, "Whoa, that's the voice you're gonna use?" Jeez. And I went, "Yeah." He goes, Nah, I don't like it. Change it. What do you want? I don't know, just not that. So I'm like, I keep trying to change it. He's like, no. And I was so nervous, and I was literally sweating buckets.